right after watching the news on TV. Zhang Yi took little Duong Xin to the control room. Zhang Yi introduced. Xin, take a look at this new device. Zhang Yi took Xin for a tour of the control room. Soon Xin began to get acquainted with the supercomputer in the room. Zhang Yi immediately said. Later, the information network security here will be left to you. Zhang Yi looked at little Xin passionately working on the supercomputer and thought, an extremely intelligent computer genius who suffers from polio, hemiplegia. There is truly no one more suitable here than her. Zhang Yi is right behind Xin. Observe her perform training operations. Xin's hands kept pressing. It's like this control room was made for her. After a moment of observation, Zhang Yi curiously approached her and asked her, how is Xin? Is there any error in the system? Xin immediately said, this bank's lighting system is the highest personal network system 10 years ago, with extremely powerful features. Zhang Yi also listened attentively. Xin pointed at the screen in front of him and said, even now it can overwhelm many network systems in the world, its artificial intelligence is extremely good, and in theory there are no errors. Xin said with an expressionless face, but top hackers can create bugs. Little girl Xin pointed to the screen, where a red notification appeared. The girl explained, in the last 2 weeks, the system has been attacked more than 1,000 times. If not detected in time, in more than a month, this entire network system will be destroyed. Zhang Yi thought in anxiety. Indeed, after the Luke Fong Dat incident happened, I and this emergency department have already been recognized by outsiders as a problem. Zhang Yi hurriedly asked Xin, can you fix this bug error? And prevent these attacks? Xin smiled and said, Mr. Zhang Yi, don't forget what my major is. Little girl Xin added, fixing the bug is very easy, moreover, I will create a new, more advanced system for everyone to use. No need to use the previous router anymore, otherwise breaking into the system is extremely easy. Zhang Yi didn't really understand and said, you watch and do it. Having said that, Xin got to work. She continuously worked on the control panel in a professional manner. At a moment later, little girl Xin turned and said, Mr. Zhang Yi, I'm done. Zhang Yi was happy again as the safety of the safe house became more and more secure. He patted his head and praised Xin, you're really good. The girl also happily replied, it was just simple protection, nothing difficult at all. Little girl Xin immediately said, now let me see. Who wants to hack into the network here? After speaking, she immediately searched for the person who tried to infiltrate the system. Xin's face showed enthusiasm and excitement. If he could penetrate the opponent's network, it would be very interesting. Zhang Yi stood behind and asked, are you sure you can do it? If it fails, is there any danger? Xin turned to answer. I don't know if I can do it, I haven't officially logged in yet. Currently, their attack power on the disaster department's network is not strong. Zhang Yi sat next to Xin cheering. The little girl happily said, do not worry. Even if I can't hack their network, I can at least hide my whereabouts. Don't let them detect you. Zhang Yi felt relieved and smiled and said, then good. If that's the case then I'll start. In the excitement of preparing to attack the enemy's network, suddenly Joko ran over. She said in panic, Zhang Yi, no good. Monster, there are monsters outside. Through the control room monitor, there are cameras around the safe room. Zhang Yi and Xin find the mutated cat sleeping outside the safe house. Zhang Yi softly turned and said to Xin, that cat really likes you. Follow me until here. After Zhang Yi told Xin to increase the security of the safe room's internet, the girl immediately finished it quickly. Zhang Yi then changed the subject to the mutated cat. After Joka panicked at the announcement, little girl Xin said, maybe you're the only one he trusts. He has no one else but you to trust and keep company, so it will follow here. Zhang Yi covered his ears to think quietly. The top priority is to tame this mutant cat as soon as possible. Can use it as a weapon in the hand? Otherwise, many people across the river will die. Zhang Yi did so because he promised to spare his younger brother Chenlei's neighbor. Must tame this mutant cat. Otherwise, it will find Chenlei's neighbor to make food. At this time, Zhang Yi pushed the wheelchair to take little Xin out. Let's go outside and have a look. After going down to the living room, Joku added, Zhang Yi, there is a giant monster outside. It keeps meowing outside the window. It seems like it wants to get inside the house. Joku continued. Kanin said that the giant monster was calling Xin, and that giant monster came here with Xin. Zhang Yi smiled and said, don't be afraid, it's Xin's friend, we'll go outside and take a look. Little girl Xin approached the window. Zhang Yi immediately turned on the security system, allowing the giant mutated cat to see Xin. Little girl Xin saw her cat lying obediently outside and became worried. She gently called it. Hoa hoa. Zhang Yi looked behind him and thought, It was very tiring for him and Liang to fight. In this case there is still a chance of taming it. Zhang Yi quickly took Xin out together. I'm happy to say, Annie, we go out together to feed it. Right after that, Zhang Yi and little girl Xin went outside. The mutated cat saw Xin and happily called her a few meows. The girl Xin gently said to the mutated cat, Hoa Hoa, don't be afraid, it's me, come here with me. The mutated cat Hoa Hoa saw Zhang Yi behind Xin. He was immediately on guard, on high alert. Hoa Hoa's face was so angry that he grimaced. In his eyes he still considered Zhang Yi as a danger. Right now, in order to alleviate the cat's anger, with the plan to tame the cat as his pawn, Zhang Yi immediately took out a large amount of cat food. Some pâté, some grainy and dry. Zhang Yi sat down and brought the food package forward. He said softly, Hoa Hoa, come here and eat some food. The outside environment is really bad. As long as you become my pet from now on, I will provide food and shelter for you. Zhang Yi gave it food. Looking at it, I know that cats are still cats. Even if there are mutations, you can easily handle them as long as you have food. Immediately after that, the mutated cat Hoa Hoa stepped back. It meowed a few times. It seemed like it was still wary of Zhang Yi. Xin immediately said, Hey bro, Hoa Hoa is a stray cat. So it's very cautious. It took me more than a month to establish a good relationship with it. Zhang Yi turned to answer. More than a month later, I don't care how long it takes. But I'm worried it will attack Chanlei's village. Zhang Yi then pointed at the pile of food and said, Come on Hoa Hoa, I know you don't trust me. But I can provide you with food. Zhang Yi pointed towards the other side of the river where Chanlei's village lived. I said, But you must promise me not to attack the villagers across the river. Can you promise me? The mutated cat happily nodded in agreement. It replied, Meow, meow. Zhang Yi happily said, Very good, just decide like that. After solving the problem of the mutant cat Hoa Hoa, Zhang Yi brought little Xin into the house. As he walked, he thought, initial negotiations were successful, but such a big cat has a big appetite. I have to find some other food to feed it in the future. Just entering the living room, Zhang Yi with Xin, seeing Zhou and Yang Mi looking at the mutated cat in horror. Zhou exclaimed, Oh my god. Zhou pulled Zhang Yi to the window and said, Zhang Yi, look. At this time, Zhang Yi also approached the window. He observed what Zhou said. Zhang Yi saw that the mutated cat had now turned into a small cat. It is eating deliciously. Zhang Yi exclaimed in amazement. It can change its size. After Zhang Yi and Zhou went out the window to see the mutated cat had returned to its original appearance, he immediately exclaimed, Yet it can change its own shape. Little girl Kanin in the back said, Isn't that natural, bro? It seems like you're not very good at hygiene. Little girl Kanin explained to Min, If it's always this shape and size, the students of Tiantan Academy will not be able to fill its stomach. Little girl Xin approached Zhang Yi and said, I've always had doubts about this. It appears and disappears very suddenly. Logically speaking, with the body size of such a large flower, even getting close would create a huge commotion, but in reality, even teacher Liang couldn't detect it. Little girl Xin pointed outside where the mutated cat flower was eating. She added, Based on analysis of the amount of food it ate, there is a great possibility that it can change its body shape. Zhang Yi thought. Then Mr. Lin said, Then this problem is easily solved. Zhang Yi said curiously, How much can a stray cat eat? At this moment Xin sat up and exclaimed, Flowers bleed. Zhang Yi immediately ran to the window to observe. He saw the wound on Hoa Hoa's body. He thought to himself, there was also fresh blood on her body. Even though it was frozen, this wound must have been caused by teacher Liang. No wonder it looks so tired. But after he ate, he didn't pay attention to his wound. After all, for wildcats, wounds have long been a normal thing. Something that always happens to a stray cat in normal life. Zhang Yi thought again. Do not go near a stray cat while it is eating. Tomorrow prepare some medicine and put it in there to help it recover faster. At the same time, nourish to increase a little affection. After that, it was already dark as usual. Late at night everyone returned to their rooms. Everyone went to sleep soundly. On this side Xin and little girl Kanin sleep together. The two of them felt happy because they were very comfortable. Kanin turned to her friend and said, Xin I really can't believe my eyes. Now I feel like it's a dream. The little girl Xin immediately said, In the clear daylight, we were still hungry and cold under the ice and snow, not expecting that now we have settled down to live in such a comfortable room. The little girl Little girl Kanin said, That's right, Mr. Zhang Yi is so strong, he could create such a good hiding place in the apocalypse. Little girl Kanin said enthusiastically, I have decided that in the future I will work hard to be worthy of Mr. Zhang Yi's concern for me. Little girl Xin asked curiously, What did Mr. Zhang Yi ask him to do? Little girl Kanin turned to Xin and said, he let me get acquainted with modern, advanced machinery first. Then there are some devices I need to modify using my own ability. In addition to helping him repair equipment, he will most likely also make weapons. The little girl Xin immediately asked, making weapons is very difficult, right? Little girl Kanin looked at the ceiling thoughtfully and said, that's right, if it's a normal gun, it's not difficult to make. However, some large guns have complex details. Cannot be produced without professional equipment and molds. Even when building according to the model, there will be incorrect details in the data. The power will also decrease relatively large. Little girl Xin also looked up at the ceiling and said, I think Mr. Zhang Yi should not use normal guns. Bullets and bombs might suit him better than guns. Little girl Kanin heard it and immediately realized. She exclaimed, that's right. Little girl Kanin happily said, so tomorrow I will discuss this matter with Mr. Zhang Yi. See what weapons he needs. After a good night's sleep. One day passed. The next morning in the living room, little girl Kanin showed me a design. Zhang Yi immediately said, very good, you can mass produce these, please stay safe and let me know the necessary materials. Little girl Kanin said, boss, don't worry. I am very professional in this. Zhang Yi happily said, it would be great if there were more mines and explosives. Little girl Kanin happily and confidently said, do not worry. This is not a problem. I will take care of that. Scene changed to the students of Tian Tan Academy. No Tanvu has been in contact with family members. The other end of the phone said, I understand the situation, don't move, I will contact you immediately so someone can come rescue you. After making contact and knowing that someone would come to the rescue, the students of Tian Tan Academy happily said, great. We are finally saved. I don't need this damn thing anymore. Tanvu, you're the best person I know. You are so wonderful. Other classmates also took out their phones to contact their families, but received no response. These people think, maybe our families thought we were dead. The group of people who couldn't contact their family turned to look at Tanvu and thought, no, Tanvu's father really has the ability to come to the rescue. If so, why did he have to wait until Tanvu contacted him for help? These people wondered. Why didn't you come pick me up when the world ended? But at this time, only when his son desperately asked for help did he come to pick him up. After no Tanvu finished contacting his family, the whole group of students went down with him to the snow hole to avoid it. Cold. Suddenly someone outside called loudly, we are here. Tanvu was so happy that he stood up and ran away. As he walked and said happily, my father is here. Right after no Tanvu ran out of the snow tunnel. The students also ran behind. A certain student did not forget to follow teacher Liang behind. After the other classmate asked teacher Liang out of the ice tunnel, then saw the students standing bewildered in front. In front of these students appeared a group of people dressed in tight clothing, just moved here by dog sled. Teacher Liang looked at them and thought, these people are definitely veterans of long-distance combat. Moreover, he is also an elite soldier. These people got off the dog sled and whispered to each other. While on this side, no Tanvu spoke up. My father is no Qianquak. You guys are the ones he had to come here to save us. A middle-aged man who was somewhat skinny and weak opened his helmet and said, Tu Vu. Dad is here. No Tanvu looked at the middle-aged uncle in front of him in surprise. In his memory, he remembers his father as an overweight man. This skinny guy is my dad. Already so skinny that you've lost your appearance? Because the end came so suddenly. Lacking food, I was so hungry that I was so skinny. Tanvu ran to his father. Dad. Dad is finally here. I don't know how you lived during this time. The father held his son in his arms and comforted him. I'm fine, that's good. It's okay, it's good. Immediately after that, he shook his head and pushed his father away. He questioned his father. Dad. Why didn't you send someone to save us sooner? I have to endure a lot of hardships. I almost died here. The father immediately said to avoid his son's suspicion. Let's talk about this later. Overall, it's good that I'm okay. Follow Dad and go home. The people following No Tanvu's father approached and asked, I heard your school still has a lot of supplies, so quickly lead the way. We need to bring these supplies back to the base. During this time, teacher Liang silently said, didn't we say they came to save people? How could it be half a day without mentioning the matter of saving people? On the contrary, I still look for supplies first. Tanvu said. Supplies are underneath the snow, but here there is a mutated monster. We didn't dare go there. The person wearing the thermal suit said, no problem, whatever monster appears. We will all handle it. Your little friend shows us the way. When No Tanvu heard this, his face turned pale with fear. Don't know what to say. Brooding mouth. Me. The person wearing a thermal suit stepped forward and patted his shoulder to encourage him. Don't worry, we have experience with mutant creatures. You don't need to worry. At this moment, he immediately pointed to Teacher Liang and said, "Finding materials is always done by Teacher Liang. She knows the location of materials better than me." Teacher Liang looked at her students in admiration. Immediately after that, Teacher Liang sighed and agreed to lead the way. "Let me guide you to get the supplies." Having finished speaking, Teacher Liang immediately led the group to the place where the supplies were kept. The last person in the group, called by Tan Vu, immediately said, "People don't need to worry. Then we will of course make arrangements for everyone." These students looked at these people wearing thermal clothing and broke into cold sweats. Everyone has the same thought in mind. "I just feel like the atmosphere isn't quite right. Not like what I said at first." Some time passed, and after this group of people wearing thermal suits followed Teacher Liang to the place where the supplies were stored, suddenly someone emerged from the tunnel, pointed and said, "Come over here and deliver your things." The students who were called by Tanvu were a little scared. But I had to run to help. Then the male students helped move the materials onto the dog sled. These students whispered to each other, "Aren't they here to save us? Why do we still let us work?" At this time, a group of male students were carrying supplies and lamenting, "That's right. We have suffered so much already. I thought the rescuers would take care of us. Unexpectedly, he used us as his errand boy." A guy behind No Tanvu felt dissatisfied and asked him, "Class monitor, why isn't this like what you said?" Tanvu clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, thinking, "I thought my father had a very high position there. Now it seems that this is basically not the case." No Tanvu suddenly changed his attitude. He smiled slightly and turned to pat his shoulder to comfort him. "Now is a very special time. People will not raise people to be idle, only to work hard. They're just short of people. We can rest when we get back to base." Immediately after that, the dog sled left. "Return the materials of Tien Tan Academy to the base. Leave 2 people from the base behind." The students were also confused. 2 people from this base turned around and said to the students, "Let's go." The students were angry. "What do you mean to tell us to walk?" The people behind were noisily saying, "Where is the car? Why don't you ride here?" The angry students of Tien Tan Academy just made a fuss. "We have been hungry for so long, but still have to walk 10 kilometers. The guy in the base's thermal protective suit immediately shouted angrily, "Just shut your mouth for me." He angrily pointed at the base and said, "If you want to live, follow me. If you don't follow, don't care. Get out of here immediately." Having finished speaking, he angrily turned around and left. His teammate crossed his arms and said, "I will also speak frankly, no matter what your previous status was. Now that the world is ending, the previous status is gone. If you want to live, shut your mouth and obediently follow." Then he threw a bag of food on the snow. The students' spirits collapsed when they learned this was the truth. A mentally broken student knelt down on the snow and lamented, "Impossible. This is not the truth. Just because of a blizzard. So our previous efforts were all in vain?" Teacher Liang quickly walked over and gathered the fallen food into her bag. She encouraged the student's spirit. "Let's go follow them." Teacher Liang came forward to help the mentally depressed student up. She said, "Please listen. Now we have no other path to choose. You have to go to Taesun base to live. Everyone must try their best. The road is not far anymore." Talking about this, the students became more excited. "When the world ends, we no longer have a choice." After a long time, specifically about an hour and 30 minutes, Teacher Liang and the Tien Tan Academy students finally arrived. Teacher Liang stopped and said, "They're here." 2 people from the Taesun base immediately went to open the base door. Teacher Liang and the students followed closely behind the other 2 people. Immediately after opening the base, inside are stairs going deep underground. After opening the door to the base, 2 base staff members signaled the students and Teacher Liang to go inside. The happy students ran quickly inside, quickly moving down the stairs, silently celebrating as they walked, waiting for so long. They were finally saved. After entering the base area, this group of students wondered confusedly, "Then what happens? How should we do it?" Teacher Liang stepped forward and said, "Do not be afraid. They spent a lot of effort to bring us here. Surely it won't harm us." The students of Tien Tan Academy are a bit worried. Sweat was also falling from his face because he couldn't keep calm. Immediately after that, a group of people wearing anti-poison protective suits came, carrying some medicine bottles on their shoulders. As soon as this group of base staff arrived, they immediately sprayed some chemicals at these students. Suddenly a somewhat overweight woman walked over. Without greetings or introductions, she immediately said, "Everyone lined up in 2 rows." The group of students were bewildered and did not understand what was going on. This woman said, "Let me tell you a little more clearly, because in order to ensure the safety of the rescue department, it is mandatory to carry out comprehensive disinfection and body examination. Please cooperate with our work." At this time, inside the base room, the students lined up in 2 rows in order and approached to check, as instructed by the person in charge. One by one, everyone came forward for a blood check, a comprehensive examination, to ensure safety and to find the person with the awakened ability. Those who had finished checking were immediately taken to another room to wait. The employee said, "Before the test results come out, everyone please wait here." Those who are waiting for results are put aside. Those who have not been tested move forward in order, waiting for their turn to be tested. A moment later, all the tests were completed. All the students and teacher Liang sat down to one side and waited. A moment later, a staff member brought a bowl of something. The students and teacher Liang were a little surprised and couldn't look away. Everyone looked curiously at the metal pot. "What is that?" Immediately after that, all the students came forward to taste it. "After tasting it, tell me how you feel." "The taste isn't that bad either. Smells a bit like yogurt, but definitely not yogurt." A short time passed. The large basin containing what these students called milk had been consumed. Immediately after that, Tanvu's father and the person in charge approached. Tanvu happily said, "Dad." The slightly overweight person in charge came closer and whispered to Tanvu's father, "Is this your son?" Tanvu's father happily said, "Correct. The boy is my son. My name is No Tanvu." The person in charge smiled and said, "Not bad." The person in charge approached the students and teacher Liang said, "Test results showed that people do not have infectious diseases or disease-causing bacteria. This is very good. Next, follow me to disinfect. Then lead everyone to survival room number 4. After speaking, this woman signaled her staff to get to work. While everyone lined up to follow those doctors, No Tanvu was last in line. The woman in charge immediately said, "You come here." No Tanvu said proudly, "I told you, right? I have my dad here so I won't be like everyone else." The group of students turned to look in admiration. At that moment his father came closer and whispered, "Tanvu, here you must follow the rules. Tell me what to do, I'll do it. Do you understand?" Tanvu also understood and replied, "Don't worry, Dad, I will definitely listen." At this time, everyone was still lining up to follow the doctor to the examination room, and Tanvu followed the woman in charge. "Tu Vu, come follow me." The students looked at No Tanvu's back and said admiringly, "He's so happy." At this time, the woman in charge took No Tanvu somewhere, surrounded by people guarding it very securely. After arriving, the person in charge said, "Take a shower first." Tanvu thought to himself, "Why does this place feel like someone's bedroom?" Without saying much, Tanvu also listened. He went into the bathroom and took a shower. After bathing, No Tanvu went out in a very happy state, but he was no longer happy when he saw the scene before his eyes. The woman in charge was already waiting for him. She held Tanvu's hand in anticipation. This woman immediately took Tanvu to a chair to rest and said, "What are you waiting for? Come here." The group of female students was taken to a separate room, and these female students were provided with new clothes. Everyone puts it on and whines, "What the hell? The color and design are so bad." The new beauty director appeared, a beautiful girl with cool glasses. She approached with her 2 guardians and said, "All here. Next we'll lead people to where they will live and work later." The female students listened. Everyone lined up to follow the person in charge. These classmates were sweating and thought, "Life in the asylum is not at all what you imagine." At moment later, the beauty director walked proudly leading the female students of Tiantan Academy to work. Arriving in front of a metal door, the door opens automatically. As soon as I entered, I witnessed the unexpected scene of a group of female students. They exclaimed, "That is..." Inside, there are many other people riding bicycles to generate electricity to supply the space. The curious female students asked the person in charge, "What are they doing?" The beautiful curator said, "You dare to ask, I dare to answer. This is everyone's workplace in the future." Hearing this, the group of students were confused and didn't know what to do. The person in charge of this beauty continued, "Everyone's job is to generate electricity for the base. Those bicycles are actually generators, linked to the base's electrical system." Hearing this, the male students could no longer calm down. Everyone was confused and scared. The woman in charge turned around and glanced at this group of students. "Then say a few more words. The base's rules will soon give each person a right. If you want to stay here, you must follow the rules of this place, otherwise the consequences will be very serious." These students were confused and scared. It's too late to hear this. No chance to turn back. The person in charge of this beautiful student gave the group of female students a scary look. "Hurry up and get to work. If you continue to be slow, your supplies will be deducted." The female students were threatened until their limbs trembled. A student knelt down and held teacher Liang's hand and cried, "Miss Liang, Miss Liang." The other female students also cried bitterly and said, "Miss Liang, us?" Seeing my students cry, she turned around to look at the situation. The girl knelt down and cried pitifully, thinking that the situation here was no different from the factory. Even though life was always under threat at the academy, at least there was freedom. "Miss Liang will also protect us." Seeing that, the person in charge turned back and told her that it was okay to cry, but she had to work first. Teacher Liang now came forward to console and encourage her student. "Don't be afraid, with me here, everyone will be okay." Teacher Liang looked at her students with worry. She tries to motivate her students. Everyone go to work first. After that, these female students and Liang went into the office room. Teacher Liang walked behind to observe the situation and make a judgment. At first, I thought this place was a disaster area, coming here and things would be sorted out later, but now it seems I'm still too naive. On this side, No Tanvu has completed his work. The fat woman was very satisfied. The person in charge prepared his things and left. Jia outside the person in charge met No Tanvu's father. He asked happily, "What's up? Is my son satisfied serving you?" This person in charge happily raised his hand to give a like. She said praisingly, "Very good. His skills make me quite satisfied. Was it taught by you?" He scratched his head shyly and said, "No, don't yell at me like that, please, that's all in the past." The woman happily left. She waved goodbye and said one sentence, "Please help me handle the rest. In the future, I will tell the logistics side to take care of you and your father, and give you more supplies." Tanvu's father bowed his head and thanked him. "If he needs anything in the future, please feel free to tell him and I will immediately bring him there."